Hi, Manna family. We're studying the Ten Commandments, and today we're on the last one, the very elusive sin, if you will, of coveting. Most of the other commandments are rated the visible actions that you can see and you can measure, but coveting is 100% internal. It's invisible. It can't be seen by others, and it's often overlooked by ourselves. It states very simply in verse 17 of Exodus 20, "You shall not covet." And then it tells us what? Your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. You know, jealousy is motivated by fear of something, of losing something we already possess. Coveting is desiring something we do not possess, but which already belongs to somebody else. To covet means to set your desire upon, to earnestly long for, to stretch out after, to reach after, to take pleasure in. Now, not all desire is wrong. It's a good thing to desire health, the well-being of your family, going to heaven when you die. The command against coveting forbids us to desire something that God has already given to somebody else. Coveting begins with an attitude of dissatisfaction toward what God has already provided us in His infinite wisdom. Coveting tries to convince us that if we only possess something above and beyond what God has already given us, then we would have joy and satisfaction and life would be wonderful. That is a lie. God is a completely good God, and He only gives completely good gifts. James 1:17 says, "Every good thing bestowed and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow." Philippians 4:19 says, "And my God shall supply all your needs according to His riches and glory in Christ Jesus." No one knows what we need more than God, and no one has a greater riches of supply to meet our needs than God Himself. It's infinite. When we covet, we're telling God that we know better than He knows. God has designed us so that He Himself is the ultimate fulfillment of our deepest desires, because ultimately nothing less than God Himself will ever satisfy our souls and produce contentment and joy. We are not to covet our neighbor's house. This means their possessions, their position in the community, or their standard of living, and yet that's rampant in our culture. King Ahab, coveted Naboth's vineyard, which was next to his palace. He wanted to turn that vineyard into a vegetable garden. Now, Naboth said, "I'm not going to sell it." And so his wife Jezebel, Ahab's wife Jezebel, arranged to have Naboth killed because Ahab coveted that vineyard. She paid false witnesses to claim that Ahab had cursed God. And then, because cursing God was obviously a legal reason to execute, she had him killed according to the legal code, and then Ahab took possession of the vineyard. So in this case, coveting, commandment number 10, led to bearing false witness, commandment number 9, stealing, commandment number 7, and murder, commandment number 6. We're also not to covet our neighbor's wife or husband. King David, saw Bathsheba bathing, coveted her, committed adultery with her, even though she was already married to one of his finest soldiers, Uriah. When she became pregnant, David arranged to have Uriah murdered by abandoning him when he was in a very fierce battle with Israel's enemies. Then he attempted to cover up the adultery by marrying Bathsheba. In this case, David's coveting led to adultery, stealing, lying, and murder. So coveting is the source of many, 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 many sins. We're also not to covet our neighbor's servants or anything that belongs to our neighbor. This could be their business, their employees, their lifestyle, their reputation in the community. All of that has been entrusted to them by God. Coveting has been called the mother sin that leads and gives birth to many other sins, because breaking the other 9 commandments very often begins with coveting, being dissatisfied with what God provides. Eve, as a matter of fact, in the beginning, coveted being like God, and as a result of her coveting, sin and death and suffering entered the universe. Jesus warned us against coveting when He said in Luke 12:15, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of covetousness, for not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." Coveting always draws us away from God and His goodness and puts us in the center. And we have to find out that life is not all about me. Life is all about a relationship with God Himself through Jesus Christ. The cure for coveting is contentment. Contentment, number one, with God Himself, and contentment, number two, with whatever God in His infinite wisdom and love chooses to provide for us. Remember, God designed us to do life together,